Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission to order for our Thursday, February 2nd, 2023, 7 p.m. meeting. There is a quorum present, and we'll do the roll call first before the electronic participation.
Okay. Commissioner Russell. Here. Supervisor Andrews.
Here.
Yeah, I'm here.
There it is. Supervisor Herrick.
Here.
Ms. Wilkinson.
Here.
Supervisor Barlow. Supervisor Jones. Here. Supervisor Reed.
Here.
Supervisor Rutherford. Supervisor O'Brien.
Present. So Supervisor Rutherford and Barlow let us know they would not be able to join. Councilor Payne, if they finish up, is in a budget meeting with the City Council. Will arrive an hour late if they remain on schedule. And then Supervisor O'Brien will likely be joining us online. That's what we're expecting. Thank you, Ruth. But what we do need to do with the quorum present is vote to allow those who are online the ability to participate electronically. So I'll need a motion to that effect. So moved. Second. All right. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
We have to state for the record that Supervisor Andrews will be participating remotely from an Albemarle County location due to a personal matter.
That is correct.
Oh,
I'm in my home in Samuel Miller District and due to a family medical situation.
Thank you, sir. All right, the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And for the
Thank you.
record, when another commission member joins, we'll have them state their location, but that vote covered their participation. So, all right, we'll move to matters from the public. Any members of the public here? Speak up. Okay. Any online? Some staff online. Huh? No members online. We will move to.
Good evening, everybody. This is Gorian. I just wanted to say hi.
That are,
F,
what's the title?
body.
Body, yes. I couldn't remember the title that introduced. Good evening, sir. Ian, I think you're up first tonight. Public hearing, home art draft allocation plan. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Ruth, would you mind pulling up the PowerPoint? All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ian Baxter. I'm the regional housing planner here at the TJPDC. Tonight we are having a public hearing for our home ARP draft allocation plan, coinciding with the end of our public comment period, which began on January 18th and is finishing this evening. I'm going to briefly go through what is in the draft allocation plan, what is home ARP, and hopefully answer any questions you might have about the process or work product we've produced. And then I guess we will open it up for a public hearing. I guess someone will do that in the room, but next slide. So home ARP in 2021, you guys are probably very familiar with the American Rescue Plan, provided a lot of different one-time funding to localities, but as a component of that, $5 billion in ARP funds was administered through the Home Investment Partnerships Program, which is a HUD administered affordable housing development and rehabilitation program. There are 4 separate types of activities and 4 qualifying populations. So the 4 QPs qualifying populations are homeless individuals, those at risk of homelessness, those fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault or human trafficking, stalking or human trafficking, and part of other populations where providing supportive service or assistance would prevent a family's homelessness or would serve those with the greatest risk of housing instability, and then veterans or families that include a veteran family member that meet any of the criteria 1 through 4 above. So these activities that are eligible under this grant are development and support of affordable housing, TBRA, tenant-based rental assistance, provision of supportive services, and acquisition and development of non-congregate shelter units. And so localities within each of these QPs are allowed to put in preferences. So it's basically a priority for the selection of applicants who fall into one of these. Essentially, a good example of that would be an elderly individual or persons with disabilities. So basically can name subpopulations within these to receive assistance. Oh, next slide, please. So this is the allocation. It's basically a $2.4 million one-time allocation. The TJPDC is receiving 15% of the award, around $360,000 for planning and admin costs. And then the remaining funding per the cooperative agreement that governs the home consortium splits the funding evenly across the 6 localities. So that number is $347,404.92. There's a 90%, actually, I think the first number under program 90% is the correct number, but localities are able to spend 5% and 5% on capacity if they subcontract or have a subgrantee for this grant on capacity building and then operations, and then the remaining 90% must be spent on programmatic. So in order to submit a draft allocation plan, a gap and needs analysis had to be conducted. So this is basically a required consultation with agencies and service providers whose clientele include these QPs to identify the needs and gaps in housing or service delivery systems, basically provide information so that localities can make an educated decision on how to allocate this fund. And so we contracted with PES, Partners for Economic Solution. It's a consulting firm that I believe we worked with on the housing needs assessment for the region itself. They conducted interviews and consultations over the summer of 2022, and then they produced a written draft product with all of the gaps and needs analysis per HUD's regulations in August of last year. And so we sent that gaps and needs analysis to all locality staff or locality staff at each of the 6 localities. And also made presentations at 5 of the 6 governing boards in the fall of last year to determine eligible activities and sort of workshop through what exactly they wanted to do with the money. Next slide, please. And so this is just a brief overview of some of the organizations that PES spoke with. As you can see, it was pretty conclusive. I don't have the exact number, but I believe it was between 20 and 30 organizations that they consulted to produce this draft document. And so this is the allocation plan. So this is how the localities have decided to use the ARP funding. You'll notice the majority of the funds will be used to develop new affordable rental housing for these QPs, as well as provide nonprofit operating and capacity building to organizations conducting that affordable housing development. As well as supportive services, focusing on keeping people housed and providing other resources to individuals. And on the next slide, you'll be able to see the specific activities. And I'll go through these briefly. Albemarle chose to allocate their funds to BRAC, the Blue Ridge Area Coalition for the Homeless, which will be providing supportive services for medically homeless individuals. Charlottesville will be releasing an RFP to fund development of affordable rental housing. Both Fluvanna and Louisa have a very similar development that's going to be happening in each respective locality, but 8 affordable rental units for seniors at greatest risk of housing instability, as well as nonprofit capacity and operating expenses to Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation. Greene County DSS, Department of Social Services, will be providing supportive services with a preference on elderly and children with families. And then finally, in Nelson County, NCCDF, or the Nelson County Community Development Foundation, will be developing 4 affordable rental units for seniors at greatest risk of housing instability, as well as taking advantage of the nonprofit capacity and operating expenses or funds that per the grant. And so our next steps after this public hearing is incorporate anything we've heard from the public comment period and tonight's public hearing, transmit it to HUD. There's a due date by March 31st of this year, but we're looking to send it over to HUD by the end of this month or maybe the first week of March. They have a 45-day review period, and then after we hear back from them, assuming everything looks okay, we'll begin to start creating projects within IDIS, which is the HUD system. I will say this grant, the timeline, it extends until 2030, but there's a certain amount of time that there are different time horizons for each activity once you enter it into IDIS. So I don't have them in front of me, but I believe, for example, if you say you're going to construct affordable rental housing, once you start that project, it's a few years rather than that full, 7 years at this point. But localities do have some time to, they have time basically before they have to make the decision on when they want to start all of these. And I think that's the end of the PowerPoint.
Questions for Ian or comments? Would you mind putting the slide up that had the breakout of the different jurisdictions? Keith, I want to add on, as the chair of the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership, when we talk to Keith and I have been going around to the different localities to do some presentation on that work, which we'll probably share more about in the roundtable. But one of the things that we talk about is that each while the issue of affordable housing is regional, and the partnership's designed to help with sharing and communication and collective effort, the jurisdictions remain or retain the ability to figure out what they want to do policy-wise and action-wise within their jurisdiction.
I didn't know they would hit me up as a non-guest. I used the guest link.
Ms. Franklin, I believe you're not muted.
She need to be upgraded. However, that's a good example of how each jurisdiction can decide how to utilize, with the support of the Regional Housing Partnership, to do what they need to do within their own boundaries.
And if it wasn't for the RHP,
I remember this one was like an equalized portion. It wasn't, they had to divide it up equally among the jurisdictions. But that's a great example of that. I'd have to add that into the roadshow.
there you go.
Awesome. All right, Ian, so we need to open the public hearing and ask if anyone, there's nobody in the room here for the public hearing. Is there anyone online that would like to speak in the public hearing? You can use your hand raise option. All right, seeing none, then we will close the public hearing. The matter is before the, we're going to take action later.
Yes, all action will come during we don't actually need to take action on this. We just need to hold the public hearing.
Gotcha. I would remember, so used to calling for an action after. And I forget here that actions sometimes come later. All right, very good. Ian, thank you. And we will move to number 3, presentations. The first, we have a staff introduction. Ms. Jacobs.
I'm pleased to introduce you guys to Curtis Scarpinato. He is joining the PDC as a regional transportation planner. He'll be working on both urban and rural transportation and staffing the MPO. I know you guys know how excited I am, but this puts us fully staffed for the first time since I've been in this position. So we are really excited to welcome Curtis, and he has done an incredible job hitting the ground running. Welcome. Do you want to say anything?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am excited to work with all of you. Just for a little bit of background about me. I'm a Duke alum who was working in economic consulting before this in DC, but I'm excited to dive right into transportation planning here.
I missed the Duke alum part, the MPO piece. That's brave saying that. I guess you say. Convert you. Well, welcome. Appreciate you being here this evening. All right, the next item under presentations, we have Ms. Lori Allshouse with us for the quarterly Virginia Telecommunications or body presentation update.
Thank you. I'm Lori Allshouse. I'm the body program director at TJPDC, and I'm just here to give you an update on the project. I was here before you back in November, so this is just to provide you an update since then.
And Lori, I know that you used to do this of us when we were in room 241, but the owls, we got to, especially for the online, definitely.
All right.
Definitely talk out
All
a
right.
little bit so they
Here
can
I
hear
go.
online.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
So as you can see by this slide, this is just a slide of our regional area for this grant. It's 13 counties. It's 36 months. We're doing this project with our partner, part of their Regional Internet Service Expansion, or RISE program. So you may hear it out in the field as the RISE program. It has many different aspects that are working together to bring fiber broadband internet to these 13 counties. By the numbers, it's a $288 million project. 79 million is coming from the state DHCD. You have 209 million in this project coming from our matching partners, which are the 13 counties and utilities. Here you see there we have 13 counties. There are 4 utility partners. Again, it's a 3-year project. And at the end of the day, 36,000 businesses and residents will have access to this high-speed fiber broadband. So I just want to share with you a few highlights. In December, we had a stakeholder meeting, which is when we get together every quarter with all the partners. So we had 41 attendees at this meeting. And what we do is all the utilities provide updates on their part of the project. We also heard from DHCD. And then Firefly provided a lot of information about their communication process and how to use their internet website to understand information about your specific counties and where projects are. There's a lot of mini projects within this large project, and you can find out information about very specific areas. The other thing I wanted to mention is an important function that TJPDC does for this project is financial management. There's a lot of moving parts with this funding, and since November, we reviewed, verified, and submitted our first set of remittance requests to DHCD and several of the counties. And then we received and processed our first set of reimbursements and set up procedures to do that as we move forward with the project. An important thing about this is DHCD pays for TJPDC's admin for this project, meaning that we're doing this on behalf of our partners and our counties free of cost. So we review the invoices and do a lot of the work that many county departments of finance would have to do. So we're doing that on behalf of the counties in this project. So I just wanted to share pictures. So one of the fun things about this project, especially for me, is to get out into the field and see what's going on. So we were, David Blunt was in Nelson County on November 7th. He was in Livingston along Front Street, and he was able to talk with construction workers, see something that we call make ready in the field, and that's to get the poles ready to hold the fiber, and also see some fiber placement on the poles. The picture on the left, you can see, I don't know if you can see it from where you're sitting, but there's like a little circle of like black fiber rolled up. And if you see that on a pole, that means something good is coming. So sometimes I'm driving and I see that, you know, so I have to be really careful because it's exciting to see that the fiber is being built in your area. So if you see that on the pole, that's good. That's a good sign. It doesn't mean nothing's unfinished. It means they have the fiber ready to move forward. Yeah, it's exciting, right?
You said that.
Yeah, it's cool. And then we were in Powhatan County in December, and this visit was neat because DHCD, the state does site visits all throughout the state of the project, and they came to Powhatan County, and we were able to join them. You can see our own Ruth Emmerich in the center of the picture there, looking at some of the large equipment that's used in this project. And then you can see the picture on the left side again, the top corner is of us in a communication hut, which is the real detailed part of the project where the fiber is so small and there's where the splicing and all the very secure and very clean area to where a lot of the fiber activities take place. We also saw some fiber being pulled down through the VDOT right-of-way. We saw also the construction maps, and I had a really nice site visit. DHCD thought it was a really great visit that we provided them. And the picture on the left bottom is a pedestal, and that's looking inside the pedestal and understanding more about what that is. So that's another good sign when you see those light green boxes. And then in January, we were in Louisa County. We went to 5 different sites in Louisa. You can see actually on the top right, when you see the straw, that's underground fiber that's been placed in a neighborhood, and that means it's ready to be installed into those who choose to use the fiber and want to hook up to the internet. On the bottom right is a drill. It's another way that you can put underground fiber around rather than pulling the plow. It's a lot, it doesn't disturb the earth as much. So we were able to see the equipment, and you We also had just the luck to come across a property owner who was very excited about the fiber in their area and got to speak with them about the project. The other thing that we do is every month we provide milestone data to the state. We also provide it out to the counties. This is the data overall for the project, and this shows you the number of miles of data the miles of work that's been done in all the different categories of the project. A couple important things, the word passings means we're passing areas to hook up. You see there's 55 passings on that. And also Dominion is doing the middle mile of this project as in-kind match for the program. And this is the first time they're on the map with the 12 miles of construction showing up on our report. And we'll be reporting again every month. That really concludes my information about the 22 project, but we are applying for 23 funding. This is, we applied back in August. This grants for some additional unserved areas in Albemarle, Cumberland, Greene, and Madison that qualified for this grant. We're asking for $13 million, and it's a $23 million project. Again, some strong match coming from the partners. We expect to hear soon on this grant. It's supposed to be mid-February. So you'll know, I'm sure Christine will let you know.
We're waiting.
This grant. So we're hopeful that we can continue our work and do it even a little bit further than we are. It would be an extra 300 miles of fiber. If you want to learn more about this project, TJPDC has information on our website under our work/broadband. Also, a really good place to go is Firefly's site. If you click on your seal, you see your county seal, click on the seal, then you can go into specific sub-projects that are going on in your counties. Click on them further, then you can see information about the communication that's being sent out to the residents and other details on their progress. And then keep it updated about every 2 weeks. So good. And that concludes my information. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Any questions here, comments?
I'd love to, if I may, take a moment to just give a kudos to Lori and Gorion and the whole team. They've learned more about broadband than I think we ever thought we would as an agency. And part of our job is to get into the weeds and verify all expenditures and review hundreds and hundreds of pages of invoices to confirm that what's being reported to us is actually what's being spent, and to go out in the field and make sure the work is actually being completed where it's being reported to us. So I've been really grateful and pleased for the work that they're doing. I just want to share that with you guys.
Thank you, Lord.
So, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Since Jesse isn't here, I'm gonna brag on internet from Fluvanna County. I texted him and said I was gonna say, he said it was okay. Shout out, I live in Fluvanna County, a shout out to Firefly. My internet didn't work at my house all of a sudden. And I got on, messaged the Firefly, and I had people over the house pretty quickly. And, the old excuse, the dog ate my homework. Well, it turned out a mouse ate the internet, and apparently that's a regular thing to find on that end of it. But in an emergency, they came and fixed it, and something about having to watch football or something. I don't know what that was, but they came in and did it. So shout out to Firefly, they're doing a great job.
That's a great partner. Thank you.
Take that, Jesse.
All right, we will move to the next item, which is the fiscal year 24 rideshare work program grant application and fiscal year 24 commuter assistance program strategic plan technical assistance grant application.
It's a mouthful.
Wow.
Wow, yeah.
Good evening, Ms. Pennington.
Thank you guys for having me here. It is often customary for me to present and to speak with you guys right as the grant period is ending. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's in your packet, both of the grant applications. So we had 2 this year, so that's a little different than in the past. We have our regular operating grant, and then we have a grant for a technical assistance program through RPT to help us complete the strategic plan. So just going to give you a little bit of a background and an overview on rideshare. Some of you have heard this many times. For some of you, this will probably be new information, so bear with me. A lot, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. These photos were taken when the world shut down for the pandemic. And it's just a really great example, I think, of seeing how eliminating car traffic or reducing that can have tangible effects. And I just think these images are so powerful. PM is a piece of the climate action puzzle. Our main goal or our mission at Rideshare is to reduce traffic congestion and single occupancy vehicles. And this can be the results potentially. This snapshot here I took today of the dashboard that we have for our ride matching and trip planning platform. So this is something that several of the what we call commuter assistance programs in the state have to both facilitate carpool matching, van pool coordination, as well as trip planning. So folks can sign up for this through our website. They can log any alternative trips they take. So that also includes transit, that also includes biking, that also includes remote work if you are doing the cleanest commute of all and just staying home and working from there. So this is just some of the results. Once you register, you actually get your own personal dashboard that shows all of this information, but this is just kind of the stats for the area. As you can see, it breaks it down to the number of emissions saved, the dollar amount. $674,292 is what our commuters have saved by taking alternative forms of transportation. And so I just think it's really interesting to go and see this, and it's updated automatically as folks log their trip in the app. This is kind of what you can do it on your telephone, you can do it on the website, but basically, and you can set reoccurring trips, but it gives folks the idea to help us build some data. And the beautiful thing, the more trips you log, the more points you get that you can cash in for rewards. So that's kind of our way of helping make sure that we're getting that self-reported data. So that's one of the large component areas that we have. The other big part of the rideshare program is our guaranteed ride home program. So most people say the reason that they are hesitant to try alternative transportation to and from work is, what if something happens and I get stuck and I don't have my car? So the guaranteed ride home program is the answer to that. I like to call it an insurance policy. It's there in case you need it, but most likely, most people never actually even have to cash in. So it is there for anyone who takes 2 trips on alternative transportation a week to and from work. They sign up. It is right now a separate database. We're hoping to eventually make that more of a statewide program as well. But they would then receive a voucher that they could use for a taxi company here in the area. Something happens, let's say they become ill while they're at work, they didn't drive. All they have to do is call the taxi company and give them that voucher with some information filled out that we provide to them, and their ride back to their car or their home is taken care of for free. So it does seem to be, like I said, the #1 deterrent. So we're very happy to offer that particular program. In promotions and the things that we did in FY23, we celebrated with our partners over at CSPDC the 1-year anniversary of the Afton Express commuter bus. That happened in September. That has been a huge, exciting development for TDM in this particular area. I'm sure as many of you know, a lot of our commuters come from the Stanton-Waynesboro area, and that is who this particular bus route services. We actually just got news yesterday afternoon about some new hours and routes that will be running with the Afton Express, so stay tuned, we'll be posting that soon. But they have expanded to accommodate the hospital workers, the 12-hour shift workers, a little bit more with that route. In addition, we celebrated Rideshare Month in October. This was especially nice, so we have always celebrated either Rideshare Week or Rideshare Month in October, but this year the state decided that they wanted to celebrate it here statewide through all of the commuter assistance programs. So we got to be in on the ground floor and helping DRPT look at what type of marketing and promotions they wanted to do for Rideshare Month. And then in the spring, we have Clean Commute Month, and then we also have Bike Month. And those two are kind of synonymous because biking is a very clean commute. But essentially, anyone who participates in that, this past year, we had them upload pictures of their clean commute to social media, and then we drew for prizes for that, and we celebrated 5 winners with that particular challenge during the month of May. Some other exciting things that have happened with rideshare is we have developed a lot of new marketing. Last year, we were working with a local company to look at new and different ways we could be marketing to update a lot of our marketing. So we have new brochure designs. We have new bus ad designs that will hopefully be going up in the CAT buses very, very soon. They gave us a lot of good information about social media and how to really harness and use that to reach folks asking to do this very large behavior change. And then one of the big things that we kind of already knew, but was really nice to have confirmed, is that we needed to develop a media content library. So we need local photos of our park and ride lots, of our commuters, of our buses. And then more importantly, we needed video, because video has a 95% retention rate of information, and we did not currently have video. So that is one of the big things that now that the grant applications are done, we're starting the process of securing our companies for that. And hopefully they will be out taking pictures and shooting beautiful, lovely video come spring. Coming up for FY24, which is for the grants that you have in your packets there, we have our regular operating grant, which is just running the program like we do every year. And then a new requirement from DRPT is a 5-year strategic plan. And this plan is really going to look at data in the area. It's going to be very data driven as to what commuting patterns are, how many folks are really making trips throughout the region to and from work. It will also look at further identifying the target markets of what those commuters look like, why they choose to make the choices that they do in those particular behaviors. And then the idea is after some stakeholder meetings, we're kind of going to re-look at our vision, our mission, and then come up with goals and objectives for the next 5 years as to what we really want this program to look like. You know, a lot has changed. The pandemic and remote work has become even more popular. The Afton Express, you know, that route just, like I said, celebrated the 1-year anniversary, so it wasn't taken into account in any plans that we had done previously. So I think it's a really good opportunity and a really good time to look and to delve into this, especially with, you know, changes in social media and reaching folks that way. So we're really excited to take a deep dive and to examine, you know, what can make this program be really successful and how can we implement that, like I said, for the next 5 years. For regular operating, because that's going to also be happening at the same time, we will continue the promotion of all the DRPT initiatives. So Rideshare Month, I think I saw on some information that they put out that there's going to have a little bit of a name change. Since there are programs called Rideshare, they want it to sound a little bit more conducive. So I think it's going to be DRPT Connects. There's also Discover Transit Month, which we have participated with in the past, which is a really great time for us to reach out to those transit riders and make sure that they're registered for Guaranteed Ride Home, because that is a benefit that they get. And then we are going to continue to focus on building up the app and the rewards use of the program. Again, that is a really great way for us to be able to be looking at data from various time points to help guide the program as well. And that's pretty much it for my presentation, but I am happy, of course, to entertain any questions.
All right, questions?
I have a quick question. So first of all, Sarah, thank you for everything you do. You do some great work. So my wife and I live out in Fluvanna County. We work, our office is in the X building, and we build and plan our schedules around, do we need to take 1 vehicle or 2 vehicles? So when we do that, we make a decision, okay, we're gonna take 1 vehicle. Is that something I can record on the app? Is that?
Most absolutely can. Yes, you carpooling inside your own 100% counts. Anything that is essentially removing a single occupancy vehicle counts.
Including working remotely.
Yes. So yeah, like I have it set in the app, with our hybrid schedules, I work from home Mondays and Fridays, and so it is set as a scheduled trip in there. And what's really great is, to make sure that people don't just set something and it just goes on and on and on forever, is the app will actually ask me every so often that I have to confirm that I'm still making that trip. So it does its best to keep people really honest with it.
So truthfully, what this is some way to beat Jesse Russell rather than something else.
I was
Since he's
thinking,
not
You do whatever you gotta do, Kate.
It's a thing.
I was thinking if you carpool.
I didn't start it, by the way.
If you carpool in with Mrs. Smith, if she needs a break, there's a guaranteed ride home program for you as well.
Well, technically that is for emergencies only.
And people know me, it's not an emergency every day.
So I saw in there over 600,000 calories burned.
Yes, so all of those bikers and walkers.
I guess working at home is the calories earned. That would
Probably
probably
not.
be less.
Probably not.
You know, piece of information.
Got it, understood. Awesome. Any other questions or comments here?
Just important to note, it's two separate grant applications that were submitted. The new strategic plan is a new requirement. It is a 50-50 match, but we will not be coming to our local governments for that match. We'll be using existing per capita revenue to cover that.
And just to note, the amount that we've requested for the operating is the same as last year as well, therefore the match is the same as last year as well.
Is there a question online? Did I hear someone ask?
Not a question, just a comment. I had the experience of working with some people in the medical profession yesterday, and in a brief survey, which was just prompted by chit chat, found that everyone that I talked to in the staff was either Nelson County or Fluvanna County or Buckingham, Greene. I don't think I actually asked a single person who said they were from Albemarle or Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that.
Wasn't a scientific survey.
Thank you, Supervisor Andrews. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you.
And I should have noted, Councilor Payne joined us much earlier than we were expecting you, being you were at a budget meeting, but that was back during Ian's presentation, correct? So this is for the record. We noted the time. All right, then we will move to number 4, our consent agenda. We have a series of action items here. The first, contract with, is it Camoin?
Camoin Associates.
Camoin Associates, Inc. for Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, and Ms. Jacobs.
We needed to sign this contract since we don't have a meeting in January. The Finance Executive Committee was gracious enough to give their time to review the contract and to authorize me to go ahead and undergo contract with Camoin Associates. So I just wanted to include it so that you all saw the contract, because it's not something that was approved within the budget. It's a grant that happened since the budget was approved.
Now, as it is under action items, do you need us to take formal action?
No, I just put it under consent just so I could include it.
As a FYI.
Yes.
And then we have our minutes from December 1, 2022. Any additions or corrections or edits there? All right. And then the monthly financial reports. Christine, any items there you want to?
Sure, it'll be brief. All of the documents were within your packet. I'm sure you guys saw we had a very strong November and a very strong December, which is a little bit unusual. December is a little bit of a month where we sometimes see a loss just because of the amount of vacation that's taken. But I think November was the largest net gain we've had in a single month to date. So I think that comes with being fully staffed and having a lot of new programs and being able to fully bill all people to those programs. But what that does mean is we're at about a 70,000 net gain to date, which means I intend to move forward with bonuses for staff. That was within the budget, but it was presented as if there is ample resources at the end of the year. I think we can project that there will be enough to get those bonuses.
Can I ask a question? You commented at some point that you scattered out the professional development among different projects. Does that mean that you can charge the grantor for that amount Isn't that a wonderful idea?
Yes, it does. So if we attend a conference that is to develop a staff member who's working on a housing program, we can bill it to that housing grant.
Good, and that will help us, I saw that nice little effect on the proposed amended budget too.
Questions or comments? So we will need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And that is to number 5, new business, and a raise grant application for the Fluvanna River Bike Pit Bridge preliminary engineering. And Sandy Shackelford is here to join us this evening.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Sandy Shackelford, I'm the Director of Planning and Transportation for the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. And this is to give you a little bit of background information about a RAID grant that we would like to apply for. And a little bit later on in your agenda, we're going to ask you all to approve a resolution of support if you are so inclined to authorize us to move forward with making this funding application. Give you a little bit of, to orient you a little bit geographically, this is for what we're talking about is a bicycle and pedestrian bridge that will cross the Fluvanna River between the Pantops area behind what was formerly referred to as the State Farm property, and provide a connection to the Woolen Mills historic development site on the west side of the river. So the bridge is at the bottom of that picture right there, and there's, if you can read it, it's by the letter that says A. The Charlottesville Albemarle MPO has been working on planning for this bridge since 2019. We completed the Jefferson Area Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, and immediately after that, we were able to secure funding with VDOT to conduct a feasibility study, which helped us identify some potential alignments for this bridge. This bridge has come up repeatedly over at least the last 10 years, if not 20 years, depending on who has the historic knowledge of what's been happening with this project. And it showed up in plans both for Albemarle County and the City of Charlottesville, as well as regional plans. So the feasibility study in 2020. And then that narrowed the alignments or the potential locations to 2 potential options. And then the MPO conducted some additional public engagement to choose which of those alignments we would like to move forward with as far as an application through SmartScale. This was the alignment that the MPO determined they would like to move forward with. We submitted this in the most recent round of SmartScale, and it scored very well. It was evaluated, and out of the 394 projects that were submitted statewide, this project, just in terms of the overall benefits, ranked number 26. However, is that this is a new bridge in a location where there is no existing infrastructure. So there's a lot of information that is just not known that makes it very risky financially to know how much it's going to cost to conduct this bridge. For those of you who are unfamiliar, when you submit a SmartScale application, you're submitting basically for the project, all phases of the project all at once. So the preliminary engineering, which includes a lot of the environmental review, geotechnical analysis, those kinds of things, had not been completed yet. So you don't know what the soil looks like, you don't know what the potential impacts might be to the floodplain. There hasn't been an environmental analysis completed to date. All of that drove up the risks. So by the time you added all of these contingencies to account for any of the unknown risks, as well as the inflation that has to be added on, the base cost of the bridge went from 18 point, it's either 4 or 8 million up to $42 million. So basically, what this means is that we have a lot more work that we need to do before we can move this bridge to a point where it's going to be competitive to get funding. And so we would like to apply for a RAISE grant in order to help us complete that preliminary engineering phase to answer some of those outstanding questions. The RAISE grant program stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. It's a discretionary grant program. It's highly competitive, covers all modes of transportation, and both planning and implementation grants are available through the program. One of the things to keep in mind is that even if the project gets the highest rating available, the discretionary aspect of this means that the DOT is looking to award grants that cover multiple mode types as well as geographic diversity. So even if we have a very competitive and compelling application, it's still up to the discretion of the US DOT over which projects would be awarded. Merit criteria, as shown up here on the screen, there are 8 merit criteria. In order to receive the highest rating to move forward with additional consideration, projects have to get a high score or be rated, I guess, highly in 6 of the 8 categories. We believe that this bridge is able to do that. We think that there are some very strong benefits of this bridge that align well with the merit criteria. The more challenging of these would probably be the state of good repair, just because it's a new project, so there's not a state of good repair concern with the bridge, but we would obviously want it to be constructed to be maintained in a state of good repair, as well as innovation. This is not necessarily designed to be a particularly innovative project, but we do believe it's an important project. Projects will be scored in each of the merit criteria. Highly recommended projects are those that score high in 6 of the 8 merit criteria, and then they'll be advanced for further review and consideration. It's basically going to be to complete the preliminary engineering project phase. That includes a number of environmental reviews. It will ultimately result in what is referred to as 30% functional design plans. And then the other opportunity that we have through this potential opportunity to help make this project more competitive is that once we have those design plans in place, the project could be reviewed for value engineering, which is basically a way that engineers would review what's been developed and determine if there are other opportunities for cost savings. So this would give this project an additional advantage for being competitive for future funding applications. TJPDC staff would be the project sponsor and the fiscal agent, so that is why we are asking you all to support this project through the letter of the resolution of support. But we have also been communicating with VDOT, and VDOT has agreed to administer the project on our behalf. So with that, I believe that was my last slide. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this project at this time.
Sandy, is any consideration given to reconsidering the location?
Not at this time. The MPO policy board felt like they had already made a decision on the location, and we are choosing to move forward with the decision that has already been determined at this time.
Hope we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with that decision then.
Questions or comments? Just as a member of the MPO policy board who voted on the location, I can tell you that the economic development factors were the biggest driver for the location, and some pushback from those who lived in the area at the alternative location. Just to provide some information as to why we chose that. The policy board discussed this approach, or going to raise, at our last MPO meeting, and for a lot of the reasons it scored so highly for Smart Scale is part of the reason why we believe it will probably be pretty successful in achieving the grant. The contingencies, is that the word they use for the risk? Contingencies really drove up the cost on this. But VDOT seems pretty excited by it because this will lower it down. So we're feeling confident that the RAISE grant is successful. We could probably even go back and ask for their implementation grant as well to help with the costs after the study grant is done. So that's the thoughts of the MPO policy board on looking forward to going for the RAISE grant initially.
And maybe you said this, but I didn't catch. Is it that the RAISE grant would
help with the engineering, and then you might reapply for a smart scale?
Yeah, so there are three things that have to happen. For this project to have a viable path forward for any implementation funding, we just need to get the cost down. We need to answer some of these questions. So the RAISE grant, if we are successful in receiving this funding, would help us address some of those unknown risks. Second, it would do some of the project work, so we would reduce the scope of the project for any future implementation funding. And third, it allows us to review the concept before we apply for funding to find additional cost savings opportunities. And then at that point, once we have a more accurate cost estimate for the construction, we can determine whether or not it might be competitive for smart scale at that point, or whether this might be a good candidate project to apply for another federal grant for the construction.
I may have missed it. Did we have a number for the raise for the PER for the?
I have a ballpark figure for you. Based on the smart scale application to complete the PE phase, it would be about $2.5 million. I will be working with VDOT to get that finalized before we apply.
Thank you.
And we also have to scope out the TJPDC staff admin portion, and what type of engagement would be required, so we haven't finished that yet.
2.5 is close enough.
That's
I was kind of thinking.
Great, thank you, Samantha. We'll be taking action on that here on all right, so if no other questions or comments there, we can move to the next item under new business, draft fiscal year 23 amended operating budget. Ms. Jacobs.
Okay, bringing the amended operating budget to you all this month as a draft. As a reminder, our budget process is three-part. We come to you in September, October, 2 years in advance in order to set our per capita rates and our local contributions. So that was in October of 2021. We then get the budget approved as the operating budget in May. That was in May of 2022. And then we come to you with the amended budget where we have better projections on how the year will end and revise some of our projections. So that's what's before you tonight. It will come back to you again next month for approval. So this is just in draft form so that we can take any feedback. We then will bring to you in April the draft fiscal year 24 budget, and then in May approval of the draft of the 24 budget. So we have 4 of these in a row coming up. A couple notes on our budget. It does include total projected revenue of 41 million. So about where we thought we were going to be. We're really quite close to that. We've got a couple more grants that we've received, but we're very close to what we anticipated. I have a very conservative estimate of 52,000 as a net gain. I will tell you, I believe it's going to be higher than that, but I still have to work through a couple of the newer grants that we got and try to figure out how much will actually occur in this fiscal year or how much will roll into next year, just depending on how long it takes for our grantors to get through the contracting process. For our federal revenues, you will see that's probably the biggest change in the budget between the local and the federal revenues. Many of our local jurisdictions, as part of the VADI program, are providing a local, all of our jurisdictions are providing a local match except Charlottesville. And those originally were in the local category. Many of our partners have said that that's actually going to be ARPA funding that they're using. Since that is federal funding, we will book it as federal revenue. So there's just what was local is now federal, and what was federal we've taken and increased it. The state revenues, some difference in state revenues. Regional Transit Vision Plan, we had some unused funds in FY22 that we were able to roll over into FY23, so there's an increase there. We were awarded the governance study grant. That was a $122,000 grant, so there's an increase in state revenue there. And then we are very excited to share that we were awarded the VERT 3.0 grant, so that's $275,000 to continue the VERT program, providing financial assistance for those working through the Financial Opportunity Center of Piedmont Housing Alliance. So that's really great work that we're really excited that the state is continuing to pilot this, and we're hoping that we're providing data to them to show why this could be a sustainable, why we want it to be a sustainable revenue source and expand it. Right now it's a pilot program, so it is only in Charlottesville and Albemarle. We are definitely bringing to DHCD a lot of feedback about if we had more funding and if the state had more funding, that we'd be able to do more outreach into our local governments. So we're working on that. Local revenues, again, the body is the largest change in the local revenues. Same thing with the transit vision plan and the governance study, so additional local revenue to support the local match for that. And then some increased revenue, local for the regional housing partnership sponsorships for the housing summit coming up in March. And then other revenue changes, you'll see bank interest. I'm sure all of your local jurisdictions are seeing their interest increase. It was pretty significant here. We were not getting very much interest on our accounts, but the Virginia investment pool has gone from something like 1% to 4.7%. So there's increased revenue for that. Same with the rental space. We're seeing a much greater increase in the demand for in-person space rental. So we've been able to rent the Water Street Center out more than we anticipated.
Can I ask you a question about the interest income? Is
Yeah.
it possible that we are able to leave more money in that pool than we have been able to do in the past? Because the interest rate doesn't explain 4 times 500 is 2,000, not 30,000. So I wonder if we're able to manage to, and I wonder if Ruth is the one who's doing it, as far as not transferring the money out until we have to, and therefore it stays in the pool longer. Any comment?
It doesn't answer your question directly, but something that I've been talking to our finance director about is also, is there a certain amount of that we can pull out of the liquidity pool and put into a bond for an even higher interest rate in order to make that a little bit less accessible? It then becomes, not something we're drawing from. But also, I mean, as you guys have noticed, as these grant programs, we're getting larger and larger grants, and we're having larger and largeable, third time, larger and larger cash outlays. So there has been a lot more pulling down, putting it back in, pulling down, putting it back in. Yeah.
Just curious.
Largeable down. Hold on.
Largeable. What, I don't even know what that's, larger and largeable. Right, and then changes in expenses. There is a slight decrease in the salary line item just due to vacancies that we had filled until partway through the year. A couple increases in things like supplies. We've had to purchase desks and computers. I mean, our staff is now up to 17. It was 11 when I started in this role. 3 of those are part-time. So we've had a little bit of costs associated with getting that started up. Decrease in the audit legal line item. We did have increased legal expenses because of things like contracting for body, but decreased in audit. We anticipated there to be an increased expense due to the body program, but that didn't realize this year. It'll realize in next year's budget. Couple of other things. You mentioned the decrease in professional development and allocating those out to our programs. And then overall direct expenses just show a slight decrease from 426,000 to 475. That's an increase. Hold on a second. We can get the number. Increase from 426,000 to 475,000. Excuse the error. Overall, I feel confident that we're going to have a net gain. I actually feel confident it will be larger than this. Barring nothing major changes, and that we continue to have good news from the grants that we've applied to. Yep.
Other questions or comments? Thank you.
Yes.
All right, that will take us to our resolutions. The first is the fiscal year 24 rideshare work program application resolution. We received a presentation on. There will be 2 that come from that presentation.
So moved.
I'll second that, sir.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 No opposed, the motion carries. And the second from that same presentation is the fiscal year 24 commuter assist program strategic plan application resolution. So motion to approve.
I'll make that motion, sir.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that motion carries. then the final resolution is the RAISE grant application resolution. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. All right, very good. Thank you, board, commission, I guess I should say. Thank you, commission. All in old language. All right, Christine, our executive director's report.
Okay, I gave a pretty detailed update this time in the memo that's in your packet since we didn't have a meeting in January. I'm not going to go through each of these, but we have had a really exciting 2 months here at the PDC, so I want to highlight a couple of them. One of them is we were selected to host a VISTA member, which is an AmeriCorps staff member for a year here at the TJPDC. There were 11 agencies that applied for the program, 6 were selected. That VISTA member will be working with the Regional Housing Partnership to help with implementation of the strategic plan. It does require that there's a host fee, so we would be required to pay an $8,000 host fee, which can be paid through the 729 program, but we would have them 40 hours a week for a full year. Being awarded a VISTA member generally means that you can renew that for up to 3 years without having to reapply. So that means we have the potential to have a VISTA for 3 years here at the PDC. Another thing we're excited about is the VERT 3.0 award that I told you of. That's $275,000. That does need to be spent by December 31st, so we will be utilizing that very quickly. The other thing I want to share is the Coming Back Home, which is the annual housing summit that we're holding at the Omni, March 24th. I have information in your packet and a link. If you all as commissioners are interested in attending, the PDC can cover your registration cost. So please reach out to me if you're interested, and we can get you a promo code specific to commissioners so that your registration is covered. We're really excited about that summit coming up. It was pretty successful the first time. It's been a couple of years since we've been able to do it because of the pandemic, so we're really excited. Jay Grant, who is the executive director of LISC in Hampton Roads, is going to be the keynote speaker, and then it's going to focus on partnerships, policy, and progress. Those are the 3 themes of the event. Transportation Smart Scale, as you guys have seen in your own jurisdictions, 4 Smart Scale projects were recommended within the planning district. I have them listed in the packet. TJPDC was involved through the MPO applications, through the TJPDC applications, but also supported our local jurisdictions in some of their applications. So we were really pleased to see. I need to make sure that I just clarify what I just said. They were not awarded, they were recommended for funding. It still needs to go before the Commonwealth Transportation Board before that's finalized. Mobility management, Lucinda on our staff came and presented to you, and we got your direction to go ahead and move forward with an application. We did submit an application around $125,000 to begin to start that program. We're going to wait an award for that. That is on a federal fiscal year, though, so that if we were to receive that funding, that wouldn't begin until October 1. Originally, we were under the impression that since it was through DRPT, but it is FTA funding, so it would be in October 1 if awarded. I'm going to skip the RAISE grant. I think the most exciting thing, and something that our staff has been very proud of, is we were awarded the USDOT Safe Streets and Roads for All. I did send that to you all before putting out the press release. Total, that's a $1.07 million project when you take the federal funding and the amount that your local government supported us with the local match. We are very excited. The NOFO for that, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, has one of the most unique phrases I've ever seen in a NOFO that said, once awards have been determined, the department will go under contract as expeditiously and flexibly as possible. So we have no idea when that means a contract will come. But we will just be flexible and hope it's expeditious, and we'll let you know when we get a contract, because that will come before you all, since it's a public amount. MPO and rural work plans are in development right now. In May, the MPO UPWP, Unified Planning Work Program, will come before you all as an informational item. The rural work program will come to you as a draft in March, and then you all as commissioners do approve that in your April meeting. Feds, we have kicked off. We have identified the members of the state steering committee and invited them to a kickoff meeting that is upcoming. We're really excited to get that program moving. That was another one that was a little bit of a slow uptake because we had never contracted with EDA before. So we had to go through a lot of like training and things to prove that we were sound financial managers. Hazard mitigation has now officially been approved by FEMA, and it was before the Fluvanna Board of Supervisors earlier this week, and they adopted it, so that becomes our official adoption date. And then there's 5 years from now, there will be a required update to that plan. It'll be something I'll probably bring to you all in a couple of years if you're still here with us. But the way that funding for that has changed makes it where we have to make a little bit of a decision on whether we want to continue to administer that ourselves or contract it out to a consultant. And the reason is they do not cover indirect costs. They will only pay us our direct expenses for staff time, salary, and fringe, which means we're not recovering the full amount. It still pays for our staff time, but interestingly, they will cover 100% of the costs of a consultant that does the work. And so we will have to look at the financial piece of that and whether or not it makes sense for us to do it. We'll have to make that decision for a couple of years though. Watershed plan, the WIP, staff is beginning a new initiative, USDA Forest Service. It's called a Stewardship Assessment and Mapping Project. They're calling it the STU-MAP. I will probably ask Isabella to come talk to you all about that at some point because it is something that is a little bit new. But she's been doing really good work in working with our local governments. I know she's presenting recommendations for sustainable materials management, waste reduction goals to Albemarle County. So really pleased with the work that she's doing there. RRBC in their upcoming meeting, I think, will have a kickoff related to the STU-MAP. But I still have lots to learn about that one, so I'll have her come give you some more detail on that. Other than that, it's been a really exciting 2 months, new staff hires, lots of grant awards, a budget that came in really close to what we thought it was going to be.
Questions, comments? Thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was particularly thrilled about the Safe Streets for All grant coming through, and that all jurisdictions decided to participate. Nice thing that happened. All right, we're moving right along here. We'll do other business and the roundtable discussion by jurisdiction. Where's my list? Let's move from right to left. So, Mr. Smith, that puts Fluvanna County first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Something that's, are you going to talk about the road show?
I think we both should chat about that.
We finished our third row show of the Regional Housing Partnership yesterday at Ned's board. I think it went well. The primary speaker did really good. The secondary speaker was. But I wanted to first. He went first. But I wanted to take an opportunity to ask Dale and Michael, from your perspective and from your board's perspective, how did it come across? How did we do? Can we do better? And any suggestions? Well, I have it right here.
I mean, I think overall,
Remember, I'm very sensitive.
I think overall it was good. I think it spurred a good conversation among the council and informed the other counselors what the deliverables that the Regional Housing Partnership has delivered, which they weren't maybe aware of before. And I've also noticed some of the data that presented has found its way into the public conversation. We've actually had several people, someone at our budget work session tonight, and a couple other people at other city meetings who have spoken in public comment referencing some of the numbers you talked about, particularly the number about the number of people spending 50% or more of their income monthly on rent. So it's definitely entered the public awareness to spur action on our zoning and right and housing investments. So I think overall it was good. I think, you know, the references to data and specific numbers, I think definitely seem to have an impact for other counselors' awareness of this issue and conversation around it.
I think it was good for our board to hear your comments, to see the data, to go through the process. It's one of the things I don't think in a rural area that is forefront in everybody's thoughts. They think of this as being more of a urban problem sometimes. And so I think the presentation was good. I appreciate both of you being there. I feel like I owe you an apology. There was a conversation about cutting the presentation short to 10 minutes. Of course, Keith gets up first to speak. He heard that comment. Conversation.
Hello in 10 minutes.
The conversation was taking place because we have had presentations that would go 20, 30, and 40 minutes or longer. So that conversation took place right before you stood to speak. So it wasn't necessarily intended to stop you from.
I think they knew I was a Yankee. I think they knew I was a Yankee.
Yeah, I think Mr. Friedel saw that Keith was there and said, we need to cut this to 10 minutes. No, that was a good presentation. I appreciate you both of you being there.
One of the things we've learned, and this is nothing against your, what our first presentation, but 10 minutes isn't enough. 30 minutes was quite not enough. I think we went into about 40, 45 minutes. And I can't speak for Ned, but if you invite us back, we'd love to spend more time.
Yeah, we counselors took up a lot of those minutes. So.
Well, that's what we want, right? That's the whole purpose.
And again, I'll say, I think the data and kind of humanizing it is really important. I mean, even though every counselor pays attention to these issues, and I don't mean this as a negative way at all, but traditionally counselors are homeowners and they bought their homes decades ago, and there may not be that kind of awareness of.
That was a good conversation with Brian.
Yeah, just exactly what the rental market is in terms of what rents are, how hard it is to become a homeowner, and I think that definitely. I saw other counselors maybe become more aware of the situation.
So Dale, invite us back. Ned, the only other thing to share a little bit on the housing front in Fluvanna County, there's a project called Colonial Circle. In full disclosure, I hope the folks get it approved. But the interesting part about that, or exciting part about that, it's 125 residential units, 92 of them are 2-bedroom rental units, 32 are 3-bedroom units, and they're going to be for 60 AMI and below, which is really, really exciting. So in today's rental dollars, it's somewhere between $800 and $1,100 a month. All the foundations in the ground and are about ready to go vertical with it. So with any luck, by the end of this year, they'll have some units available. I think, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. City Supervisor, he didn't end up coming on, so we'll move to the next jurisdiction. So Charlottesville's up next.
So our budget season has formally began. We've had 2 meetings so far this week. That will unfold over the next several months. The city recently hired and sworn in a permanent police chief, which will be good. They're coming from Warrenton, and I think bring a good approach of focusing on gun violence and police reform at the same time, as well as really proactively building relationships with neighborhoods and people in the community. So hopefully that will be good for the Charlottesville over the next years. Those are the big things. The city has discussed adjusting our definition of affordability, in part because of some of the data and conversations that we've had. Our affordable housing plan calls for investments from 0 to 80% AMI, breaks it up into different priorities, and we've discussed maybe adjusting that so it's 0 to 60% rather than 0 to 80% to give more money to those lower AMI levels seeing the need. And that will hopefully be an action taken in the next month or so as part of our zoning rewrite process. But I think those are the major things.
Great. And Commissioner Russell, Charlottesville?
Yeah, we're in the thick of the zoning work, and we'll be rolling out drafts of the zoning ordinance in the next 3 months. We had a really interesting conversation in January, work session on critical slopes, floodplains, and entrance corridors. And I think what I thought was really interesting and I learned a lot was about floodplains. And the city is actually working on a flood resiliency plan. We have a staff person working on that, which is really smart. It was a great conversation, and we're looking at how we can reduce risk and, be strategic and forward thinking. But we also discussed the urban Rivanna River Corridor Plan, which, calls for development and protection, environmental protection in that river corridor, and also, we should be thinking about the rising floodplain. So I just thought that was a really, really cool thing to learn about.
It's interesting to see how weak our flood ordinances really are in Charlottesville.
Good. Any comments or questions for Charlottesville? Nelson County.
Okay, not a lot that's very exciting. Budget season is starting, and so we've been sitting in with some of the budget discussions the schools have had, so that we will be ahead of the game when they present their drafts to us, which will be coming up real soon. We're looking. You probably remember that we've purchased a property that surrounds the middle school and high school in the south part of Livingston. There's a creek that goes through there. We're looking into the possibility, in conjunction with the Service Authority, of creating an impoundment there, so we would have additional water supply for possible development along the corridor in Livingston. Nothing specific on that, except that it's moving forward. With the comprehensive plan, we're moving on that as well. We've been having bi-monthly joint meetings with Planning Commission and with consultants, so that we're all on the same page as things come forth. So increases the likelihood that our finished product will actually be approved, because we've been looking at it pretty closely all the way through. One thing that's relative to the comp plan, for those of you that are fans of the 151 corridor, VDOT is in the process of finalizing a new corridor analysis for 151, which means that data will be available for the comp plan in time to get that done. I'm personally very excited about that. That's all in my district. Finally, I think Nelson County may have had one of the worst websites in the Commonwealth. I don't know if anybody has any comments on their own, but it's been a struggle just to keep the website that we have maintaining what it's supposed to maintain. And we're in the process of creating something new, and we're looking into having a one-click on the homepage to sit in on the Board of Supervisor meeting. So you wouldn't have to negotiate a menu. You can go straight to an archive and a live meeting with, when you get to our homepage.
With all that fiber, they can get to that website.
Yes, I was here.
Did you guys, you all said, were you hiring? Was that Nelson? I remember, weren't you guys going through interview
well,
process?
after one of our building officials migrated to Charlottesville, I guess it's kind of old news by now. We have a new building commissioner.
Do you mean county administrator?
Was that?
That's Greene.
Oh, that's Greene.
Yeah.
Oh, interim, that's right. I'm getting my counties confused. I just remember Jesse talking about getting ready to do some interviews too at Fox, so maybe that was it. Very good. Any other comments or questions for Nelson?
Their new county administrator, Candy McGarry. So that might be what you're referring to.
Okay, so she's been
Several months, but yes.
She's been on for, gosh, about 5-6 months now, and we couldn't be happier. We couldn't be happier.
I remember the same thing. So
yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And it's a little disturbing that I'm having that many memories of Jesse's comments, but I quoted him in another meeting like a week ago. Go to Greene County. Mr. Herring.
A couple things in Greene. Obviously, we are in the process of trying to find a county administrator. We have an interim county administrator in place now. As Spring Garb, she's been there before, so we did some initial interviews. We're now going to search firm, and we hope to finish this process up probably next 3 to 5 months. We're also in search of possibly a finance director. Our finance director resigned, retired actually, so which very happy for her. So we got 2 key positions at the county that we're looking for. On the good news, we do have employees, Greene County employees, actually working at our water authority. It's not a Greene County Water Authority yet, but they are manning the both the waste operations and the actual water plants. So we actually have employees there manning both of those and working and operating in those facilities, which is a big step forward. So we're very hopeful that pretty soon you have the Greene County Water Authority, which will be a big boost for our economy going forward. So that's something we're very excited about. It's been a long struggle, probably many, many years, and this is the attempts have been made prior to, since I've been on the board, and they have failed to break away. So we're very excited with the possibility of a clean break, if you will, for your own water authority. We also have approved committees. As a recommendation, Emergency Service Advisory Board, we have an advisory board that meets, and that is made up of the EMS services, fire services, Sheriff's Department, 911 Center. And they recommended that we create committees to do research to try to find property, ways to finance that property, whether through grants or taxes or whatever, to build training facilities for our firefighters. Our firefighters are traveling for training. Also to probably build a center, very much like maybe Fluvanna has, where you have all your services in one area. So that process has started. They also recommended we hire a fire chief, which was very unusual because a year ago, the fire chief was mentioned and my phone was ringing off the hook all weekend long in opposition to that. So they were now in favor of trying to hire a fire chief for the county to try to coordinate services with the fire departments. And that was a big step forward. I don't think everybody's in favor of it, but the vote went through 7-2. And that position has been in our budget as a placeholder for a couple of years. So it's not, we have to approve it, it's already there. So that's very positive. We also have started a process to refund our personal property tax. As most of you know, we approved our personal property tax prior. The information we had was not as clean as we hoped it would be. So we approved what we had before us. And so we went through a long, drawn-out process of trying to determine how to refund the overpayment. And the treasurer went through a very complicated process of trying to be fair to everybody to make sure if you had a $25 tax bill that you get a $100 refund. So that process has been completed finally, and those checks will be going out to the citizens probably the next couple of weeks. And we're starting our budget cycle as well very soon. So it's going to be an interesting cycle for us. Our main concentration will be on pay scales. We have a serious issue with compression, especially in the Sheriff's Department. So that's one of the biggest pushes that we'll have going forward. And we're not sure what the impact will be, but I don't think it's going to be insignificant. So I think we'll see a huge impact, but we feel like we need to do that to keep our staffing intact. That's all I've got.
Awesome. Commissioner Williams?
Nothing to add to that. That seemed like a lot.
Any questions or comments for Greene? We'll go to Louisa.
Yeah, we've had some fireworks coming out of our county lately. We're in budget season. It was interesting. We just passed our LA resort, the Lake Anna Resort. Dwayne Adams was a big champion of that, so that is a go. It's off of Lake Anna, and it's a multi hotel, residential, and commercial space. So that's been approved. That was very dramatic getting that through. Lots of opposition and all, but our next big one is Zion Town Center, which is coming up this Monday. And that again is going to be, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of different views and opinions. They've already been approved in 2019 for 599 residential units. And now they want to add an additional 124 there between apartments, single-family homes, and townhomes. But yesterday we were in a meeting and we were really excited. They offered us a proffer. Mr. Barnes, Gerald Barnes, of our way, has been working with Habitat of Charlottesville. And if this is approved, the Habitat will be able to purchase, Habitat of Charlottesville, 10 lots within the new 123 additional spaces that they are asking for, that they'll be able to purchase them, and they're going to get cold shells. And we were all like, what are cold shells? And some of you all may know what a cold shell is. It's basically, I know, we said the same thing, our county administrator, we were like, talk to us, what is a cold shell? Basically, it's just the shell of the townhouse, and then Habitat will come in and have to do it from start to finish. So So they've been talking to Dan over there. So we were at least happy that we got that. They're gonna give us 10 slots there. Of course, the big fight is water up in Zion's Crossroads, so there'll be a lot of opposition. I had a really great meeting with Fluvanna County.
The case, but thank you.
It was my planning commissioner, Josh Gillespie, who's our community development director, and some staff from your county. We all met at Rex in Charlottesville and just sort of talked about what we have going on both sides there, and it was really interesting. Talked about the Wawa, that seems to be this huge interest. And somebody put it out on Nextdoor and it exploded, and it's like, oh boy, it's just a Wawa. But boy, is it, in fact, I just happened in the meeting to look at Nextdoor, and there's people still coming to the Wawa, and that was posted back in December. So we were excited. I think your side was excited what we're doing, and we were kind of excited with what some stuff that you guys will be doing there. So
I'm glad to see that's happening. I said it jokingly, but truthfully, decades ago, that probably would have never happened.
no, it probably wouldn't have. And we were even getting down to the nitty gritty, like what are we gonna look like on the Louisa side, and what is Fluvanna's image looks like as far as stone and brick, and just sort of trying to coordinate like a gateway. And we were just all sort of having that conversation, and it was a really good conversation.
Thank you.
So, and we're gonna, I think, continue to have that and work with that. And that little Wawa area, there's a small sliver of Louisa County that crosses through that property and that area that you guys want to develop behind there, that our Josh will be at some of the application meetings and stuff, just so we're all on the same page with it. So, yeah, that's about it for us.
Awesome. Comments or questions for Louisa? Mr. Andrews, we'll wrap up with Albemarle here.
All right. Perhaps though I should defer to you since I missed yesterday's meeting, and then I'll come back, catch some of the things from before if you don't mention them.
Absolutely. I will so one thing about the roadshow that Keith and I did, I think, not just the time allotment, but where we're placed on the agenda. And this is not, Greene went through a pretty rigorous conversation. I think it was your clerk, or there was a conversation with the attorney. You guys had a go on a big topic that it was getting later into the evening because that's just how agendas work. We all get there. We were first up at Charlottesville, so we got them fresh, right? And when you get people at 4 and it's the first item, your brain's a little different than if it's 9:15 and.
Now, we'll say we changed our agenda order, so presentations like that are earlier on the agenda, very first thing.
Well,
action.
But that, I get it. I have to work harder as the night goes on a long agenda, especially if you come out of a rigorous conversation. But that helps with it as well. And so that informed what we're asking for from Fluvanna.
Yeah.
And we rescheduled our presentation with them to not have to follow public hearings, which can be daunting, especially for your audience. So, we enjoyed it. It was a little surreal having to come down off the dais to give a presentation to my own board, but I did, and it was good. The one other item, I forget who made the comment, but personalizing to the boards, it might have been you, Keith, that said, when you personalize the information, or actually, I think it was Michael, it came up in your budget conversation, but yesterday you talked about hand.
Yeah, so Ian, I gave a presentation to the Regional Housing Partnership, and I think hand's a platform, and help me out, Christine, out. I think it's out of Washington, D.C. And the interesting thing is it's a visual, and you can slide it, and it's somebody who works as a nurse, and it talks about how much money it takes for them to afford to live in that jurisdiction. And, and it was a really great visual, because sometimes I think might have been Dale that mentioned it, sometimes in some of the other counties, they don't quite understand that the person who's maybe changing your oil at the local shop that does it can't afford to live in your county. And this is a very visual tool, because we get eaten up at data numbers and all that great stuff, but it puts a face to a number. And that was actually really cool. I'm excited about it, and hopefully we get to use that soon.
And the data that it uses is very jurisdiction or area specific. So when you slide the rent, as the rent goes up, it's specific to your area, and then it puts across the face of the nurse or the police officer or the teacher housing instability or unstable housing. I mean, there's a phrase that
Basically, they can't live here.
and they exit out. So as you climb in rent, it's saying, okay, if rents are here, I think that's how it was.
It was rent was the slide bar,
And
and
then
it
it
showed
shows
all of the
you
professions.
what you lose in your community based on your data that can't afford to live there. And that's something that we thought, wow, that's a powerful piece that hopefully the partnership can work on trying to get that for our area.
We were struggling how to explain it, and Ian kind of walked in, how about this?
So let's see. Since I'm on Regional Housing Partnership, as Christine mentioned, as commissioners for the Coming Back Home, that's March 24th, it's a Friday. If your county, and a lot of the counties or jurisdictions did sponsor that, they get tickets as well to put a table together depending on their level. So obviously I'm making the pitch to get as many of the elected officials and staff to that conference. So if you can take advantage through the commission to get there, that opens up tickets for others in your jurisdiction to also get there. So just asking for any encouragement, since if you did do the sponsorship, to send some of your electeds over there to spend some time. Because the first one we did was a wonderful day. I mean, it was, people came away from liking that experience, and this is finally when we could do it again because of COVID. On housing, yesterday we had before our presentation on the Regional Housing Partnership, Albemarle County had a pretty good conversation about a specific developer incentive or grant program, where the idea is that you would take the amount of, say, what the water connection fees or tap fees, let's say that's 10,000 per unit, and giving a tax rebate to that amount to a development application if affordable housing, if our housing policy targets are met. So that's one particular program out of a slew of incentives we're going to be considering, but the board got pretty engaged in that conversation. I don't need to go into the details of all of that. Mr. Smith was there in attendance, and others, activists and people that pay attention to the affordable housing piece. But Councilor Payne in our roadshow conversation talked about how you can't necessarily build ourselves out of the affordable housing issue, that there's going to have to be subsidy. And Albemarle yesterday, right before talking about some of the data and lack of units out there, we're talking about the cost and how do we get about providing the money to provide that subsidy to allow people to get into affordable units. And we're specific to a 60% AMI for rentals is what our housing policy talks about. On the heels of that, in the evening, we've been approved a developer application. It's Dickerson Overlook, it's Willow Glen, it's out behind the Hollymead or the Target area out on across from the airport. And it's one of the first applications that came before us that's shooting for our housing Albemarle targets. So they did 20% AMI or 20% affordable units for 15 years instead of 10. They couldn't quite get to the to longer time frames, but then started talking about how developer incentives could help take them even further for either longevity or more units. So we're hoping that that'll happen. But it was nice to have an application that wasn't grandfathered under our old policy, because until we get the developer incentive piece ironed down, they can still come in at 15% affordable units. So I was thrilled that was in my district that was coming in at 20%. The last thing I was going to ask is a request. I know all the jurisdictions are doing compensation studies. So as those come, I don't know who's going to be first out of the gate to receive their study or update or presentation to their board. I'm just asking if you would note that. I think it would be a good idea for us to share that information for the benefit of all of our jurisdictions, since we're all doing studies. It also would be beneficial to Christine as the executive director of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. She can very much learn for this organization from all those respective compensation studies. So put that request out there. All right, Supervisor Andrews, you usually like to go, you usually never like to follow me.
That's quite all right. I appreciate the summaries. Obviously, we're doing our comprehensive plan. We're having our reassessments. We have a few things that we've done that are a little bit off the beaten track, but I should mention them. We adopted a fraud, waste, and abuse ordinance, which enables people to report incidents of financial misdeeds or waste anonymously and follow it through a service, which we had I want to emphasize we had nothing to evidence that we needed this at this point, except that good governance suggests that making sure that this sort of thing can be reported is a good idea. And back in December, so we haven't met for a while, we did a commercial property assessed clean energy finance program, which I also thought was interesting in that it provides a way with through commercial lenders to secure financing for clean energy programs. And this still is administered through private lenders, and the Virginia Department of Energy helps out, but it's just another way of sort of lowering the cost for borrowing for those sorts of activities, and appreciated that. It's probably about all I have. I will say we added a number of FTEs in social services due to increased workload because of required reevaluation of every recipient for the Medicaid SNAP programs, and that may be something other people are facing. So I thought I'd bring that up as what's going on, I guess. And then I'm sad to report that we're going to have our deputy county executive retire in August, but still, Doug Walker's been one of the most pleasant people to work with that I've ever experienced. So.
And experienced, yeah. Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments for Albemarle? Very good. All right, that will take us, our next meeting will be March 2nd in 20,223. No, it's 20, the next number in there. So 2023.
We guaranteed to live that long.
We get a break, that's what happened. And as Christine mentioned earlier, the budget will be coming forward for approval at that meeting, and you can, in your packet on the agenda, see some of the other items that will be coming forward for that. And it's already time to start the evaluation process again for our executive director. All right, very good. If there, well, we do motions here for adjourn. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mike, please. I'll take it. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We are adjourned till March 2nd, 2023.